Right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to this webinar with Michelle Simmons. This is a joint production between the Waikiki Swim Club and Kailua Masters Swim Club. I'm actually on the board for WSC and also a member of KMSC. I highly recommend KMSC to people who are on island and want to do some master swimming. It's awesome. But Michelle has been a coach for a long time, both triathletes and now, swimmers with the Masters Group. And she has a lot of really interesting research-based information that she likes to share with her athletes. And I've been happy to receive a lot of that information. And we wanted to pass it on to club members so that you can take advantage of that as well. So I will turn it over to Michelle. And Michelle, let people know if you want questions in the chat or if you want to wait until the end. Because people might have good questions to ask.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen because I have a presentation that I'll share with you that takes us through sort of this journey of what we think and say to ourselves affects our physiology and therefore like how we perform, how we feel about ourselves, all that kind of stuff. And it is like a participation thing, and it would be really helpful if you guys had your chat option available, because there'll be times where, since I'm sharing my screen, I probably won't be calling on anybody individually until the end, but to have the chat open and be ready to, because I'll ask you several times, like, type in the chat, what you thought of this or how it made you feel or whatever. So I'll probably go ahead and mute you guys now. And then I'm going to share my screen. Oops. Let's see. Oh, shoot. Let me go back to my start. I was just going through it to make sure I had it all good. And I do. Bear with me here. Here we go. Okay, so goals here. Actually, hold on one second. I need to go back because, I need to go to my Zoom. I need to be able to see my chat. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys to, somebody unmute yourself and tell me how I can see the chat room.
Michelle, I can keep an eye on chat if you would like me to, and I can call out things.
Okay, there it goes. I want to be able to see it, right? Because like I'm going to be...
Then you should be able to, if you go up into the view in the upper right-hand corner, there are different ways that you can see everybody.
I got it now. Okay. Uh-oh, let's see. All right, so are you guys seeing my screen? Yes. Oops. Sorry. Okay. Happy, healthy, and excited to swim. So I'm Michelle Simmons. Like Francesca said, I am a longtime endurance coach. I've been coaching swimming, biking, running, triathlon for, this is my 16th year doing it full time. Super happy to be at the Kailua Masters, where I've been for, I think, going on 5 or 6 years now. I think I started there in 2018. Really, really enjoying that, getting to work with people on deck. One thing that I've noticed over my 16 years of coaching is that there have been times where I've seen athletes outperform what I thought they were maybe physically capable of doing on a race day. And then I've seen athletes who I thought were extremely well prepared to just absolutely nail a race. And then they went out and had what would be considered maybe a disappointing performance. And it felt like my job as a coach to figure out the patterns there, like what's going on? There's something going on. So like our performance, it isn't just about how physically prepared we are. A lot of it has to do with the way that we're thinking. And so the pattern that I saw whenever an athlete would outperform what I thought they might do on the day, every single time across the board, they were like, I was so happy. I loved it. I had so much fun out there, right? And I was like, that's really interesting. Okay, so like happy, and they performed way better than they thought. And then when the performance wasn't going well, or didn't go as well as we thought, uh, pretty much across the board, it was like I just didn't feel good. And then when I pried deeper into that and asked, what were you thinking? What were you telling yourself? The 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 internal messaging on that was quite negative. Like, what am I doing here? I didn't feel like this girl was beating me, or whatever it is, and we'll get into that. And it was like, okay, so like when we have a negative mindset, we don't perform as well, and there's definitely a correlation there. And so I wanted to dig a lot more into that, and that's where I've based the last couple of years of my training a lot. When I say my training, I mean like my coach's training. Like, what am I learning about? I learned a lot about how our mental state affects our physiology. So let's see, why isn't this working? Sorry, I'm trying to. I was trying to flip it and it's not working. Okay, Francesca, I just stopped the share. I'm going to try again.
Yeah, sometimes there's a little bit of a glitch with Zoom.
Yeah, like it wouldn't. There it goes. Okay. Yeah. So like, I don't know what that was about. But anyway, okay. So to prove to you as we start off, is so because you're thinking like, oh, because I used to think that, like, oh, I can't just like imagine my way into a good performance. And so, like, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about how our thoughts genuinely affect our physiology. And so, I want you right now to take a look at this lemon and imagine biting into it. Right? So, like, you're taking a bite of that lemon. And actually, what I'll do is like have somebody, because I don't know why I can't. Oh, here's the chat. There we go. Okay. So, right in the chat box right now, what happened if you had any like physiological signs, anything that happened to your body when you thought about taking a bite of that lemon? I saw a pucker face.
And if people aren't familiar with the chat, it's just a little box on the bottom of the screen. You can just click on that. Just type in.
Anyone else have a reaction? Mouth watered. I started to salivate. Anybody else did that happen to? Because that's exactly what happens to me. All I have to do is think about biting into a lemon and my mouth salivates. And the reason that I start this whole presentation with this for you to actually experience for yourself is because it's so important to understand that what we're thinking actually affects our physiology, right? It's not this woo-woo, I don't know, like imagination thing. It's like it actually, our thoughts affect the chemicals that are showing up in our body. And we can have, when we have extra stressful thoughts and our cortisol goes up and our adrenaline goes up and our breathing changes, um, we will physically tighten up in a way that doesn't allow us to perform as well physically as we actually could. And so, yeah, if your mouth salivated there, that's proof of what we're going to get into today. All right, so with this language game, the words that we use affect the way that we think and feel as well. And so play along with me here with this language game. And so if we, sorry about that, that came up two things. I am not a good swimmer. When you say to yourself or think those words, I am not a good swimmer, think about like, what am I envisioning? I'm envisioning like every time that I didn't swim as well as I wanted, I'm accepting the fact that I am maybe not going to ever be a good swimmer. Like I've put this identity on myself that I'm not a good swimmer when I say that. So if we take out the word not, then we have, I am a good swimmer. But here's the thing. If that doesn't ring true to you, because you're like, no, Michelle, actually, there's evidence that I'm not a good swimmer because there's all these other people who swim a lot faster than me, then that sentence doesn't work for you either. Because what we're not doing here is trying to just gaslight ourselves and imagine that we're not trying to imagine our way into being better. We're trying to find words that we can put together that help us, that are true, that ring true to us, and help put us in the right mindset. So I'm not a good swimmer is not the right mindset to perform well, for sure. And if I am a good swimmer doesn't ring true to you, then then what? Where do we go from there? What if you just said, I'm a swimmer? And now you think to yourself, okay, yeah, I'm a swimmer. Does that ring true? I'm a swimmer. If you swim, you're a swimmer. And so I'll tell you, like, one of the first things, I come from a swimming background, and when I wanted to become a triathlete, I struggled a lot with the run. And it was really hard for me to call myself a runner because I didn't feel like I was a very good runner. And one of the things I did early on was I subscribed to Runner's World magazine. And this is like, back in the 1990s when like magazines were a thing that you could subscribe to and they came in the mail. The reason I did that is because I was like, I wanted to see myself as a runner. I wanted to feel like a runner. And I thought if I subscribe to this magazine, then I will shift the identity in my head that like I think of myself as a runner. And it really did help a lot. And so so you can just qualify it like I'm a swimmer, right? And if that rings true to you, great. Another way you can, sorry, this is coming up two at a time, like something's wrong with my computer. I'm developing my ability to swim. So when we think about that, when we add the word developing, I'm developing my ability to swim. We do that and we say, okay, like that rings really true. You don't necessarily have to be the fastest swimmer in the pool, but even if you are the fastest swimmer in the pool, guess what? Those people are also still developing their ability to swim. Like every single person who trains and swims is developing their ability to swim, and they want to do that. If I guarantee you, if you walk into your next swim training session with the mindset of I am developing my ability to swim, what happens is you stop beating yourself up about the fact that you're not there yet, right? Because you're on the path. The fact, and you have evidence that you are developing your ability to swim because there you are in the water, pulling strokes, doing the thing. So you are developing your ability to swim. If you add the phrase even better, that can be helpful as well, because from there you leave room for yourself to grow, right? And so what we know here is that word choice and the words that we use, it impacts your imagination, right? What am I imagining? When I say I'm not a good swimmer, I'm imagining myself floundering around in the water, not performing the way that I want to. If I tell myself, I just change a couple of words, I'm developing my ability to swim even better, then my imagination like pictures me training and perfecting my stroke and pulling harder and practicing my pacing and doing all the things and improving the way, like genuinely improving my ability to swim. So be aware of the word choice that you're using and stop telling yourself that you suck at swimming. It affects your posture. If you think about like when you're saying words that are putting you down, the chances of you making yourself smaller, hunching over some, it genuinely affects the way that we are standing, right? And so if I'm trying to perform physically my best and I'm hunched over and making myself smaller and I'm not I'm not going to perform my best from that way. And so standing tall, chest up, heads, positioned properly, your word choice affects the way that you stand. It affects your breathing, right? If I start telling myself negative things, what's going to happen is I'm going to start breathing kind of high and tight in my chest. I might be experiencing some anxiety when I breathe that way. And so calming ourselves, using our words to help us breathe differently also impacts the way that we will then go physically perform. It also impacts our actions. And this is something that I tell some of the master swimmers, who come, and I know that to come to a master's workout for the first time can be extremely intimidating, right? And so a lot of it is because I think the word masters is like a terrible thing to call our swim program, because like what we mean is masters like we're older than 18. But what we think of and imagine, right? Because the word impacts our imagination. And so when I think of the word master, I think of somebody who's got that skill mastered. And so if you're thinking like, I don't have swimming mastered, then the idea of showing up at a master swim workout tends to be, anxiety ridden, because you're thinking, I don't belong here. But if you tell yourself, I'm developing my ability to swim better, then my actions are going to be impacted by those words, because I will then go do the thing. And I've seen this for years. Everyone who comes to masters regularly gets faster. And so this is not an advertisement for masters. This is like anybody who's training regularly. I'm just using masters because like that's our shared experience. But the way you talk to yourself and what you tell yourself impacts your actions. And the more you train, the more diligently you train, the faster you're going to get. It is just physiology, and I see it every single time. So be aware of your word choice in that way. Let's play another language game, and this is the drama, right? So there's different ways that we can screw ourselves over with the words that we use, and one of them is this drama language. Nothing ever works out for me. So we use our imagination, and I say nothing ever works out for me, then immediately I'm thinking of all the things that have happened in my life that didn't work out. I wanted to get that job and they didn't offer it to me. I wanted to coach that athlete and she didn't want my help. Whatever, right? Nothing ever works out. And is that true? Like nothing ever? When we use these words like nothing ever, everything, everyone, always, right? Like it's almost never true. As I use the word never, so rarely true that when we use words like everything, always, nothing, it's just not true. So if we play around with those words, and instead of saying nothing, let's say some things, right? So this is still going to ring true. Some things don't work out for me, right? Like that's true. It's true of life. We would not expect everything to always work out for us every single day. And so it's like, okay, but when I change the nothing ever works out for me to some things don't work out for me, the next logical step that we can do there is, you know what? Some things do work out for me. Some things work out for me. Now, if you think about even in your imagination, when we say that, some things work out for me, where did your imagination go? And so if we take a little break and like put in the chat box right now, something that has worked out for you in your life. Type it in, something that has worked out for you. I was able to move here. Yeah, that worked out. Welcome, Lexi. We're glad you're here. I know somebody else has something else that worked out for them. Something at some point. Could have even been today. I figured out how to get the Zoom thing going. That worked out for me. Got a decent job. Able to improve on many things. Got to the podium for the North Shore Swim Series last year. Yeah, that worked out. Showing up matters. Completing the double bar flutter. That worked out. So keep in mind that what you're thinking and believing impacts the way that you breathe, the way that you hold yourself, the way that you perform. And it's really, really important. Thoughts are just thoughts, and often they're not even true. And we know that because of that first sentence we've had, because we've all had that thought, nothing ever works out for me, right? When the one thing that didn't work out, and then we say that to ourselves, and it's like, it's just not even true. And so challenging your thoughts and being like, when you find yourself, because first of all, know that we all talk negatively to ourselves all the time. We are our own worst critics always. And so when we start to question those thoughts in our heads and like, what's going on? Is it true? Often it's not, or like there's a little bit of truth to it, but there's a way to reframe it for yourself to make it more positive and still true. And from there, the chances of you performing better, like the way that you want to perform, are going up and improving. So the definition of mindset, this is my favorite definition of mindset. Oh, sorry, somebody else just entered the chat. Mindset is the story I tell myself about myself. First of all, there's like 100 million different definitions of mindset, and most of them are so overcomplicated. And so to boil it down to this, the story I tell myself about myself, I'm developing my ability to swim even better, right? From that mindset, I'm likely to go achieve that thing. The interesting thing is what we tell ourselves tends to come true. And there's a scientific reason for this, and it's called the reticular activating system. And this is like, it's an actual place in your brain. I'm not a neuroscientist, but neuroscientists will like, they would be able to point it out and show you like where it is. But there's an actual like place in your brain that its whole purpose is to filter out information that it lets in. And this is really important because we are inundated all the time, every day, with so many things that we could be focusing on, right? Like there's stimuli coming at us. Like I don't remember the amount, but it's something like 1 million stimuli every day, something crazy. And we just don't have the capacity to manage all of that. And so what this filter system in our brain does is it decides what we should look for. What information are we going to let in? So my brain is going to look for and find evidence to prove me right. And we know that from like that drama language slide that we talked about, where like nothing ever works out for me. I'm focused on all the things that don't work out for me. If that's the first thought that is in my head all day long, nothing ever works out for me. Every time something didn't work out, I mean, and this can be as small as like the light turned red right as I was pulling up to it. And you'd be like, see, nothing ever works out for me. Light turned red. Like, I'm going to be looking for those things. And I'm going to see them. And then I'm going to solidify that story that nothing ever works out for me. Versus if I say some things work out for me, right? Then every time something is working out for me, that's the thing that my brain is going to notice and let in. And it's like, if I'm focused on all the things that are working out for me, I'll probably pull up to that red light and not even think twice about it, right? It's just part of life, the red light. So I'll challenge you to set an intention for yourself of the things that you want to look for in your life, because as what you look for, you will find. So if we talk about training and racing mindset, what are you telling yourself? And what happens when you believe these thoughts? And I made these like sort of swim specific. I suck at swimming through chop, right? So now we're on to ocean swimming. I used to have this exact thought, and I bet a lot of you do too. And so then when you look at the ocean and it's a windy day and it's super choppy out there, the chances of you giving yourself a chance to swim well in that are not likely high. And when it starts getting hard and you feel like you're not swimming well, you're just going to be like, yeah, like, of course, like this is how it always goes for me. And nothing is going to change as long as I tell myself that I suck at swimming through chop. Another common one, I sink without a pull buoy, right? I need to use my pull buoy all the time because my body position sinks. So if I'm thinking that to myself, then I have a swim set where I'm not using a pull buoy, and indeed I'm sinking. And as that's happening, I'm not even like doing anything to try to correct it because I've just accepted it as like that's how I swim. I always freak out when I get touched, and by that I meant like in an open water like swim race situation. There's a lot of people who don't like it when other human beings like touch them in the water, and if that's something that like freaks you out, and that's what you tell yourself, then literally the slightest little nudge or bump by another human when you're all swimming in the ocean together can set you off on that path of like, I freak out. And notice the drama language in there. I always freak out. You're not even going to give yourself a chance to not freak out if that's what you're telling yourself. So if we change, again, we're playing with our words, we're changing our thoughts. Like, how can I reframe that I suck at swimming through the chop? If I say swimming in chop improves my ocean swimming, right? Now, what happens is I'm going to seek out and look for opportunities to swim in chop, knowing that when I do that every time, I get a little bit better. And just as a little aside here, this is personal stories, always fun. When I first moved here, I came from Arizona, and I was a decent swimmer, but I always swam in the pool, and the ocean was reasonably new to me. So there was a time where I was swimming on the east side with some of my friends, and I hated the chop so much. um, I, I would complain about it, and and there was a time where I was swimming with a couple of my friends, and every time we would stop, I would like bitch and moan about the chop and be like, it's so choppy, like it's so hard to swim, or like whatever I was saying. And like one of my friends actually said to me, he goes, you hate the chop so much, just go swim in a pool. And I was like, wow. And I realized that my words, like me saying those words out loud and expressing my frustration, was actually bringing my whole group down. And I tell you what, that was the last time I ever complained about chop. I just made a choice. I'm like, I'm never complaining about it again. And then I started putting myself in chop a lot. And I made choppy ocean swimming a strength of mine because I exposed myself to it. And so, like, I'm a success story there, going from I hated chop, I told myself I hated chop, which made me hate chop even more, to, okay, I don't want to be the negative Nelly of the group. So I'm going to learn how to do this. And I exposed myself to it, told myself more positive things. And now, like, there's times where I'll salivate when it's choppy, knowing that so many other people are freaking out. And I'm like, yep, not me. So you can change your mindset on that if you have that thought as well. Put yourself in it, go practice, and tell yourself that you're getting better at it every time. And so even if it like still sort of sucks on the surface, it'll get better over time. Instead of I sink without a pull buoy, if you said I'm working on improving my body position, right? So it's like, okay, what can I do? If I know I sink with a pull buoy, instead of just lamenting in that fact, be like, okay, well, I'm going to play around a little bit with my head position. Maybe if I bring my chin down a little bit, maybe if I press my chest down a little bit, maybe if I rotate a little bit more. There are things that you can do, because here's the thing, not everybody sinks with a pull buoy, right? So it's like, okay, if you sink with when you're not using a pull buoy, that's an indicator that there's some growth that you can do to improve your technical swimming ability. And so you can look at that and be like, okay, what do I need to do so that I sink less, so I can work on my body position? And embracing that, instead of making it a negative, make it something that is your personal challenge, and watch how your swimming without a pull buoy improves. And then from that, I always freak out when I get touched. If I just accept that physical contact is a part of ocean swimming, it's going to be so much better when I'm actually out there swimming and someone is touching me. And another thing, if this is you, that you don't like that physical contact, I know this is really, really common. I'll share with you, my friends and I, we used to go out, and at times we used to practice touching each other when we were swimming. Like, we were on purpose, and we would tell each other we were doing it beforehand. That makes it a lot better. So if you tell each other like, hey, today, why don't we practice like running into each other a little bit on purpose? And it's a really interesting phenomenon, because when it's happening and it's your friends, and you know that your friends are like, they're not out to hurt you, they're touching you during this ocean swim so that everybody can just get used to that in a way that is friendly, then it's a way for you to adapt to that scenario so that next time you're out like in a race and someone's touching you, you're like, oh yeah, physical contact's just a part of ocean swimming. And so you can, I feel like practicing that in a what feels like an emotionally or mentally safe environment is a really good way to do that. More training and racing mindset. So if we think about judgment versus curiosity, somebody says, I've done that too, Michelle, in the pool. Yeah, with 3 in a lane trying to get to the wall first. It was fun, actually. And Alicia and I like to touch each other's feet as we practice too. I mean, we told Nilani, and I don't know how many of you know Nilani, but she was one of my training partners years ago. And we used to sometimes we would practice tackle swimming. We'd be like, we're just going to tackle each other, you know. But we would touch each other's feet on purpose, like just to let each other know that we're there. And it can be, you can think of it as a way of like, oh, this is how we're communicating with each other. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. So it is a good thing to go ahead and practice. We go into judgment versus curiosity. It is so common for us to judge ourselves. And this is where it stems from, like, there's so much negativity that comes from judgment. So some examples of these judging thoughts. I'm not very fast. And like, you just feel what that feels like when you say that. Like, what happens? Where's your imagination go? Where's your posture go? Where's your breath go? I'm not very fast. I don't feel very good about myself. I'm not likely to go like want to train. It's not going to be very much fun when I'm judging myself in that way. I always die after 20 minutes, right? Well, if that's what you're telling yourself, then the chances of that happening will go up, and there's likely something you could do about that to fix it for yourself instead of just living with that scenario, even if you have like legitimate proof that that is true. This is another one that I hear a lot. Carbs make me feel sick. I can't eat carbs. The carbs make me feel sick. And the reason that I brought this one in is because it's, first of all, it's really common. Second of all, you guys are athletes, and like I have a whole nother talk on how athletes need to be eating carbs. So this is my little like pitch for that. And the other thing is, I believe you when you say carbs make me sick, right? Like if you've had that feeling of like, no, Michelle, like you don't understand, like legitimately I'm physically ill, like I feel nauseous when I eat carbs. I believe you. And in our society, there's a fair amount of negative connotation with carbs. And a lot of people think I want to lose weight. I need to suppress my carbohydrate intake. And so when you eat a carb, or eat something with carbohydrates in it, you believe that it's doing bad things for you. And the chances of you actually being nauseous and ill go way up. If I believe something is going to make me sick or something is bad for me, I'm likely to have a negative physiological reaction. And we remember, because remember that when we were biting into the lemon, there was an actual physiological reaction to just thinking about that food. And so we're going to talk about how to reframe some of these things. Take your judgmental thoughts and turn them into curiosity and see what happens. So instead of I'm not very fast, how about I wonder how fast I can go? Right? That's a totally different mindset. There's curiosity in there because now I'm like, I'm not actually sure how fast I can go. I'm going to see, right? Try it next time you go to the pool and you're doing an interval set. I wonder how fast I can go. What happens if I pace myself differently? Right? If I know that every time I've done a race, I feel like I just die after 20 minutes, there's a couple things I can do about that. What if I pace myself differently? So I'm asking myself that question. Now I'm curious about that. And if I'm curious about that, I can go answer my own question. But I think, what if carbs can make me perform better? So like I'm here telling you, with 16 years of experience coaching athletes, carbs will make you perform better. And so for a lot of people, like that is a giant mindset shift, thinking that you don't want those carbs, and carbs are going to make me gain weight, or carbs are going to give me diabetes or whatever. There is some truth to that for sedentary people. those laws, or like, I don't call them laws, those like the things that you're hearing in mainstream media and society about carbohydrates, that is applied to people who are sedentary and not moving, right? So carbohydrates are beneficial for athletes, especially before, during, and after your training. So if you have that mindset of be like, what if I get curious? I wonder how much better it would be if I ate this banana before I went swimming next time. If I gave myself some oatmeal, if I brought the gel with me. I'm just curious. Would I feel better? Try it. Get curious and see. And I suspect if you have that carbs make me feel sick mindset, you may surprise yourself. And if you don't, contact me and I'll give you a whole I'll bash it into your head. No, I'm kidding. I'm nice about these things, but genuinely, carbs can help you perform better. Okay, so we're almost through with this, but with the training and racing mindset, outcome versus process goals. So this is another like really common thing that I see that holds athletes back, is we're very focused on outcome goals, right? Then an example of outcome goals: I want to win my age group. I need to beat Karen. By the way, we all have those thoughts, not necessarily Karen, but whoever our like age group competitor person is. I have to beat my time, right? So those things are outcome goals where you're worried about what's going to be happening at the end. And largely, those things are completely out of your control, right? Like, I cannot control if I win my age group. Who's going to show up? Who's not going to show up? I cannot control if I beat my friend or training partner, right? Has she been training? And by the way, there's so many times where it doesn't even matter. It's like maybe Karen hasn't even swam for the last month. So yeah, I beat Karen, but like, did I get better? Like, she hasn't been training. So it's like not really the win that we thought it was. So really basing our feelings about our performance on somebody else's performance is a fool's errand, and it's not the way to improve long term. I have to beat my time. That's a really good, like, of course we all want to do that. Like, we want to set our own PRs. And I will share with you that if that is your goal and the thing that you're thinking about, the chances of you physically tightening up, so like you're going to put a lot of anxiety and pressure on yourself when, like, I have to go faster than I did before. And the chances of you actually like relaxing enough into the effort to go as fast as you actually could go are reduced when you put that kind of stress on you. I know I said Francesca's comment about beating Karen. It's legit. I know. So how do we change these into process goals? Or like, what does the process goal look like? So I'm going to control my breathing. Like, these are just examples. But like, that's something that you could actually do in the moment that would help you perform more to your potential. Something else. I'm going to keep my head still and I'm going to keep my turnover up. So if those are the things I'm thinking about, the chances of me going as fast as I'm capable of going go way up. And I share that example specifically because, like, those are the cues that I give to myself when I'm swimming in the pool. I'm swimming a set that I'm starting to feel some fatigue and I'm trying to hold it together, right? And I'm trying to, like, if I'm trying to descend or whatever, I feel some fatigue coming in. And I'm not alone in this because I coach on deck. And the most common thing I see when athletes start getting fatigued, what happens is they start moving their head all around and they slow their turnover down. And I'm not, I do that too. Because I'm like, okay, if I want to go fast, I'm going to keep my head still in neutral. I'm going to keep my turnover up. And when I focus on those two things, instead of I have to beat my time, then the chances are I beat my time, right? Or I hit the time that I wanted. And I did that because I was focused on the process and not the outcome. And then finally, I'm going to give my best effort, right? If you're giving your best effort, that is all you can ever do on the day. A little tidbit too, because I'm sharing personal stories here. I've done the North Shore Swim Series for 20 years. I haven't always done all 4 or 5 of them because sometimes I'm out of town, but for 20 years, I've done at least 2 of the 4 swims. And in those swims, it can be challenging at times if you've done those, or even like any ocean swim. It can be challenging at times because a lot of times, like, you don't know where Karen is, right? Like, I don't know if I'm beating my friend and achieving that goal. Like, the time doesn't really matter because sometimes there's a head current, sometimes there's a tail current. Like, what was the line that you took, right? So like your time doesn't even matter a whole lot at those races. Your place only matters about like is who else showed up, um, and then what line did they take, right? So like you can't even think about a lot of those outcome goals while you're swimming. And so one thing that I've done that worked really, really well for me is in the middle of that swim, I start asking myself, when this is over, will I be happy with the effort that I'm giving right now? And if the answer to that is yes, then great. You just keep going and keep doing your thing. And like, you just get yourself up to the finish line and to the beach, like as fast as you can. And then what happens is if I am running up the beach and I see my nemesis Karen there and she's already there, it's fine. Because you know what? I already told myself that I was doing the best I could. I was giving my best effort. You know what? Congratulations to Karen. You must have had a really good day because like I was really happy with the effort that I gave. And in that way, um, it it changes because like I'm guessing if you're competitive, you've had a similar experience where like you thought your swim was going well, but then you get up to the beach and you see like somebody beat you who you didn't think should have beat you, and then you're disappointed. But it's like if you know you gave your best effort, then it's not helpful to you to be disappointed about that, right? Like you focus on what you're doing, your own process goals, and through that is how you're going to end up with a really happy long time endurance swimming process. The other thing, and this quote here at the bottom is just super important, and I've seen evidence of this over 16 years of coaching and 25 years of competing. The happiness that you feel at the finish line is the happiness that you brought with you along the way. That the journey is where you find the happiness part. And that's like the journey of training. What did you learn? If you're not happy at the start line, the chances of you being happy at the finish line are really slim. But if you're happy at the start line, because like you did everything you could to prepare, and you know you showed up, you feel good about your fitness, like you're happy to be there, you're glad to see your friends, you appreciate the fact that you're out in nature and like look at what a beautiful day we are and lucky we swim Hawaii, and you have like those thoughts in your head, the chances of you being happy at the finish line go way, way up. And so I just want you to consider that, like, it's the amount of times that I've coached athletes through that exact mindset, um, is enough to prove that true to me. Like you got to bring the finish line or bring the happiness with you along the way. And then um, finally, celebrate your wins. This is something that a lot of us could get a lot better at. And the reason that I put this, I don't know, like, does anybody recognize this photo, who that woman is? The woman is Iohan Maher, I think that's her name. I don't know if I'm saying that right. She is a rugby player, and she played for the United States in the Olympics this past year. And she made herself famous on Instagram by posting really funny, awesome videos several times a day. Um, she's incredible, and I think the reason that she got so popular was because she was showing us all something that many of us are lacking. And it was like, here's this woman who is so self confident and self assured, and she's celebrating her wins in the best way. And there was a recent interview that somebody asked her about like her imposter syndrome. Like, how do you get over imposter syndrome? She was like, I don't think I have that. Like, I don't have imposter syndrome. Like, why? And I think she was even sort of like frustrated this interviewer, like just putting that imposter syndrome on her. You know, like, I don't have imposter syndrome. Like, I've been working my ass off every day for like decades. So like the success that I'm having right now is success that I have earned. You know, and even my popularity on Instagram is like, I put myself out there, I did those things. And it was so impactful. So if you're on Instagram and you don't follow her, I'd suggest following her. She's just a great role model for all of us. But if we think about the difference between like confidence and arrogance, and that's what we're going to do right now. So she's a great example of confidence. So it's rooted in self-awareness. Like she's aware, like I've done this work, like I'm allowed to feel confident. She's open to learning. You guys can be open to learning, right? Like, so it's like, I want to get better. How do I do that? Find somebody who knows more than you. Ask them questions. Do what they tell you to do. Try it. Be curious. Does it work? Confidence has a positive impact on others. And so remember when we were talking about the other example there about like, if I did my best swim, if in the middle of my swim, I'm like, Michelle, how are you at the end of this? How are you going to feel? I'm going to say, I'm going to feel good. Like, cause I'm giving a really good effort right now. And I come up to the beach and Karen is there and she beat me and I didn't want her to beat me, but she did. I'm still confident and happy with my performance. And at the same time, I can have a positive impact on the people that I'm racing with. Because like, congratulations, you must have had a great swim because I felt really good about mine, right? So we're positive in that way. And it's self-assured with no need for external validation, right? Like I don't need somebody else to tell me how I swam that day. I'm the one that knows what effort I gave, right? And I'm confident that like the training I did was the training that I wanted to do. The effort I gave was the effort I wanted to do. I don't need anybody else to tell me that I did a good job. I mean, it is nice, yes, when other people tell you that you did a good job, but it's not needed, and there's a difference. And so I feel like especially with women, but with everyone, confidence can feel like, oh, I don't want to be confident. I don't want, because we're confusing that with arrogance, right? Like we don't want to come across as arrogant. And I totally get that. But if we look at, there is a difference between confidence and arrogance. So arrogance, there's a lack of self-awareness. You're closed to feedback, right? The arrogant people are the ones who are like, I don't need you to tell me, you know, how to do this better or whatever, so I've already got it. There's a negative impact on others, right? Like if I'm arrogant, I would be more likely to try to boost myself up and doing that by putting others down. And so like that's why people tend to not like arrogant people because they feel worse around them versus a confident person, we can all win together. And finally, people who are arrogant really need external validation. Like they might be putting themselves out there because they want or need other people to tell them how great they did. It's so much better when you can cultivate that for yourself. And here's the thing about confidence. Confidence can be developed. It's not just something we're born with. And it's developed based on evidence. And when I say that, it's like based on the evidence that you have for yourself, the things that you have done. When you give yourself credit for those things, the chances of you being able to feel confident are much higher. So like, I'm not asking you, I'm not even suggesting that you like fake confidence, right? Remember that first slide where we said, I'm a good swimmer. And it's like, look, if that doesn't ring true to you, then like, you're not just going to look in the mirror and do affirmations every morning. I'm a good swimmer. I'm a good swimmer. And then become a good swimmer. You're going to develop your confidence because you're going to go decide that, okay, I want to develop this for myself. I'm going to do the training. I'm going to go easy when I'm supposed to go easy. I'm going to go hard when I'm supposed to go hard. I'm going to experiment with the carbohydrates. I'm going to be consistent. I'm, going to tell myself or look for the positive things in the way that I'm doing well. From there, you will develop confidence. And that is, it always needs to be based on evidence for it to be real. And so here I am right now giving you permission to challenge your negative thoughts and expand your comfort zone. Do hard things. And Francesca is a great example. I don't think she'll be upset, like if I use her as an example here, since she's the one that set all this up. But like there's notes that I've gotten from Francesca where she's like, I'm really proud of myself because I challenged myself to do that climb or like, on a bike, climbing that canyon, the Waimea Canyon on Kauai. She was like, that was like the hardest thing I've ever done. But she went and did it. And then at the top, she's like, I'm really proud of myself. So when you can look back on that and go, you know what, I did that. I challenged myself to do the hard thing. I did the hard thing. Now she has evidence that she can do it because she did it. So challenging yourself to do that and then acknowledging yourself for those wins, that's how you're going to develop confidence. Celebrate your small wins along the way, right? Like if ocean swimming is scary for you, then every time you go out in the ocean, you like give yourself a pat on the back. And another example that I use a lot is if you have a dog, or even if you don't have a dog, you know how dogs are trained. Whenever we want a dog to continue to do a behavior, like we just give that dog love, like, right? Like we tell the dog, good dog, and we give it love and we praise the dog. And then the dog goes, oh, that's exactly what I should keep doing. So I'm going to do that again. And so I'm going to suggest to you that you treat yourself the way that you treat your dog. And whenever you're doing something that's like, that was good, I want to do that again, and you just praise yourself for it or recognize yourself for it instead of putting yourself down and say, oh, you can belittle yourself and say, well, it was only blah, blah, blah. It was just I only swam a mile, whatever. Like, no, you swam today. Great job. I'm being consistent. So celebrate those wins along the way. I'll continue to reiterate that. And then the last question that you ask yourself, when you have a win, if you ask yourself this question, what does it mean about you that you did that thing? And then you think to yourself, whatever the thing is, it means that I showed up to swimming again, even though it was cold and raining. What does it mean about you? It means that I care about getting better. It means that I am consistent. It means that I do what I say I'm going to do, right? Whatever you decide, and what it means about you, it's very important that you're the one that decides what it means about you, because from there, it's an authentic, positive thing to tell yourself. And when it's authentic, you're way more likely to believe it. So finally, this is the last slide. Happiness is an inside job. Cultivate this for yourself. Begin by quietly improving your self-awareness. Play with your words, play with your thoughts, challenge those negative thoughts, start and keep going. And that's all I got for you guys. And so now if you want to unmute yourself, like, so if you have any, okay, I have a question here in the chat room. So I'll answer them in the chat, but then also like if you have, I'll stick around. I know it's like almost 7 right now. So if you need to go, have at it, but also I'm not on a time frame. So I'll stay around and answer questions as long as anybody wants. Visualization before a race is an excellent strategy, and not even just before a race, but like literally at all times. Top performers visualize a lot, and they do it in absolutely as much detail as they possibly can, right? So if you can, what does the water temperature feel like? What does your stroke feel like? What were you telling yourself? Really immerse yourself in the situation in as much detail as you possibly can. And what's actually happening there is you're wiring your brain to have that experience and have it positively. Gabby, what was her name? Gabby, the gal that won the 200 in the in track and field in the Olympics. When she won the gold medal this summer in Paris in the 200, and you know she's being interviewed after or whatever, and she just said, I won that medal in practice so many times that when I won it at the Olympics, it just felt like of course I did. Right? But she envisioned like all of it along the way. So yeah, huge thumbs up to visualization. Do it often, do it with a lot of detail, and it's highly effective. Any other questions or thoughts?
Michelle, what do you do if like during a race you have, something negative happens, like, in swimming, like, the conditions all of a sudden get really cruddy, or if you're on your bike and you get a flat tire, like how do you kind of get out of that?
That's a great question. Okay, so the PMA rule is in effect. And the PMA rule, you can write this down, is positive mental attitude. And what the PMA rule suggests is that any obstacle that comes in your way becomes an opportunity to improve yourself somehow, right? So we're going to practice reframing this. And so, like for the triathletes, I mean, you mentioned a flat tire. When I used to train and ride my bike outside and I was training for races, when I would get a flat tire, I would start my timer and be like, here's my opportunity to see how fast I can change this flat, because if it happens in a race, and this was like when I was by myself, I didn't do this like in a group, but here's an opportunity for me to practice changing a tire, right? Like, how fast can I do it? Can I do it in less than 6 minutes? Goals, right? And so now, like, that flat tire, which could have been this negative thing, turns out to be a positive. If it starts pissing rain on you when you're out riding, right? There's a couple of attitude adjustments that can take place. I hate riding in the rain. I'm scared of riding in the rain, right? Like, and if we have those thoughts, the chances of us like physically tightening up and actually crashing go up, right? Because we will actually be less safe, because now I'm like not even as relaxed as I could be. And so it starts raining and you think, okay, this isn't my favorite, right? We don't have to lie to ourselves. This isn't my favorite. And it is an opportunity for me to practice getting better at riding on wet roads, at riding in the rain. Like, let me see what I can do. Can I relax my shoulders some? Can I slow my breathing down some? What can I do to help myself through this challenging situation? There's a head current. God, that happens, right? Like, I've been out swimming going like, God, this head current is insane, right? And then I'm thinking, okay, if it's hard for me, it's hard for everyone, right? Is there any other place that I can go? Like, do I know anything about this course? If I turn and go inside or outside, is that going to help? What can I do? Can I pull harder? And then sometimes it's just stop looking at the bottom. like, like I'm making it worse for myself. Like, I look like I'm swimming in place and I don't like that. So like it's that awareness of knowing, am I helping myself or hurting myself with these thoughts that I'm having? And every single time the negative thoughts are hurting you, like in a physiological way, like they're making your experience worse. And so the key is, and you'll get better at this, like the more you practice it. So it's like next time that book, Ryan Holiday says the obstacle is the way, right? The obstacle is the way. So like, what's the obstacle today? Okay. So there's my opportunity to figure out how I can improve myself in some way. And then when I finish doing that hard thing, like, oh, I rode in the rain and I hate riding in the rain and I wouldn't have gone out if I would have known it was going to rain, but I did it afterward. I pat myself on the back like I would my dog and say, good girl, right? Like you did that. And then next time I'll be like a little less afraid of riding in the rain, because I'm developing my confidence that I can do it because I did it.
Great.
I have another one. I have found when injured, visualization keeping the body engaged in mind and body. Yeah, 100%. It really does. And when you're injured, typically there's something you can do. I mean, sometimes with a back injury, like that can be pretty debilitating. Like, and there's not a lot that you can do when your back hurts. But, you know, if it's a shoulder thing, I mean, you can go walking. If it's a calf thing, you can go swimming. You know, like there's always be focusing on like what I can do, not what I can't do. That'll help you get through it too, like the injury period. Injury sucks. Anyone else?
All right. I think people are done with questions, unless somebody just put something in. I just scrolled again.
Yeah, just said thanks.
Thank you. Well, with that, I will also say thank you, Michelle. I always find your information really helpful and useful. And I will say that, you know, Michelle has shared a lot of this with me before, and it has definitely helped me with performance. And, you know, we appreciate you coming and talking to us.
Yeah, thanks. I promise you, the more you practice this stuff, the easier it gets, right? And like that could just be the first thing you'd be like tomorrow, like wake up in the morning and you're like, this is hard. I've not been very good about this lately, but I need to get back to I get to get back to my practice, like setting a positive intention for yourself during the day. Like, what good thing can I do today? Right. Or like it doesn't matter what it is, but you set an intention for yourself in the morning. You set that reticular activating system that we talked about. You focus on like going and achieving the thing that you wanted to achieve. And the chances of you having a better day are like, they just go up exponentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for this opportunity, you guys, and feel free to reach out and contact me if you want. We'll have this recording ready. I don't know. Francesca, I'll send it to you whenever I get it.
Great. All right.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Okay, bye, guys. Aloha.